They always think the monsters come from outside, from the woods, from the dark, from the things that howl. But what if the monster is the one who hesitates? What if it's the one who watches instead of devours, the one who follows but never strikes? They call this place Ashpine Hollow, a quiet, fog-covered mountain town buried between centuries of trees and secrets. But the silence here? It's not peace. It's the kind of quiet that listens back. For hundreds of years, something has stalked these woods under the full moon, clawed, cursed, and bound to an ancient pact of blood. A werewolf romance? No, this is no fairy tale. This is a supernatural horror story. A dark werewolf love story twisted with madness, hunger, and obsession. This is Moonstalked, and if you've made it this far, listen closely, watch carefully. And whatever you do, don't look away, because there's a man out there, or what used to be one. His name is Kale. He was supposed to kill her, but now he would die to keep her safe. Because what started as instinct has become something far more dangerous, love. So step lightly, fear seeker. The fog is already thick, and the moon is almost full. But before you lose yourself in the hollow, if you want to survive the woods, leave your mark. Like this video, share it with those who still believe. Subscribe and turn on the bell, not just to hear the next tale, but to know when something is coming. Because in this town, it's never just a story, it's a warning. And now, let us begin. Ashpine Hollow wasn't marked on most maps. Tucked between claw-shaped ridges and wrapped in a curtain of fog that never lifted, the town existed like a forgotten breath, held tight between the mountains and the myth. People here didn't ask too many questions. They left their porch lights on even when the grid flickered, and they didn't walk alone after dusk. Not because of wolves, because of him. They didn't know his name, but they knew the pattern. When the wind turned sharp and the fog came early, something moved through the trees. Not a shadow, a stalker. Kale moved like a rumor, half seen, half remembered. Each full moon he returned to the edges of town, following the ancient instinct that burned beneath his skin. Clawed hands, blood-hot breath, muscles trembling against a curse that refused to let go. But one night, as the cold moon split the forest canopy and silver light fell upon cracked earth and rotting leaves, he saw her. Isla Winters, alone in the window of an old bookshop lit by candlelight, turning pages, smiling at stories. She didn't scream, she didn't run, she didn't know. And Kale, beast of the hollow, breaker of bones, bearer of blood, hesitated. He should have turned away. Instead, he stayed, hidden, watching the way her hair caught the firelight, the way her voice hummed softly with the music she played, the way she seemed untouched by the cold crawling through the town. Something inside him shifted. Not the beast, but the man. The memory of who he was before the pact, before the killings, before the loneliness. He returned the next night, and the next, and again. He wasn't hunting anymore. But not all werewolves follow rules. On the third moon, another entered the hollow. Kale smelled him before he saw him. Wet fur, rot, and rage. A rogue, a rule breaker, one who fed on impulse, not balance. Kyle watched from the tree line as the creature crept toward the bookshop door, claws dragging along the wood. Inside, Isla was shelving antique poetry. Oblivious, Kale didn't hesitate, this time. He ripped through the brush, slammed into the rogue, and drove him into the mud and root. Teeth sank, bones broke. The forest went red. By the time Isla opened the door, the snow was clean again. The blood buried. Kyle gone. But something lingered. A single wolf's tooth left behind on the welcome mat. Isla began to feel it. Not fear, curiosity. Something was watching her. She could feel it in the air, in the way the fog curled tighter around the door, in the way her wind chimes rang when there was no wind. But she didn't run. She started to leave the door unlocked a little longer. Then came the gifts. Dried sprig of wolfsbane wrapped in silk, a carved wooden figure with red eyes etched in ash, a charcoal drawing tucked between the pages of her journal. Her, asleep, peaceful. Each night, a new token appeared. She told herself it was the wind, the birds, a prank. But deep down, Ela knew. And still, she stayed. The narrator's voice lowers now, closer, colder. He should have stopped then. He should have left. But something stronger than instinct kept Cale rooted to her world. He wasn't stalking a stranger anymore. He was watching the last piece of his humanity, and the woods were watching him. Days passed, then weeks. And still, Cale returned, not always in fur. Sometimes he came in the skin of a man, a stranger, in a worn coat and weathered boots, stepping into Isla's shop as if he'd simply gotten lost in the fog. Looking for something rare, he said, voice low, unfamiliar, yet strangely soft. He introduced himself as Cale, a drifter, a collector of old books and older stories. Isla narrowed her eyes, skeptical at first. But there was something in the way he looked, at her books like they held secrets, like he understood, and in the way he looked at her, too long, too quiet, like she was more real than anything he'd seen in years. She offered him tea. They talked, of myths, of beasts, of the way the world forgot what it feared. He asked her once, "Do you believe in monsters?" She paused, then smiled faintly. "Only the lonely ones." That night Cale returned to the woods and howled, not from hunger, but from something deeper, longing. But darkness doesn't sleep in Ashpine Hollow. It waits, and when it moves with purpose. It happened one night as Isla was locking the shop. The wind had a bite, the trees seemed closer, the fog thicker. She didn't hear the footsteps, only the voice, cold, male, wrong. "Are you the girl with the wolf shadow?" A cloaked man stepped from the fog, blade glinting silver beneath the moon, eyes hidden behind a bone-white mask. Before she could scream, he lunged. But he never reached her, because the forest erupted with a snarl, and the man was gone, ripped from the earth by something enormous and savage. Cale, no longer cloaked in skin but fully changed, 7 feet of fur, fang, and fury. Isla stared at the beast, claws dripping, chest heaving, a gash running along his ribs, glinting silver. Their eyes met, red and wide, not with fear, but recognition. And then he collapsed at her feet. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She knelt and whispered, "Thank you." The narrator breathes slowly, the tone laced with awe and tragedy. That should have been the end. But some stories don't end when they should. They deepen. They darken. She dragged his massive form inside, shivering as she cleaned the wound with trembling hands. By the time dawn came, he was human again, bare, broken, bleeding across her floor. When he awoke, she was waiting beside him. No questions, just a whisper. "I think you've been protecting me." He wanted to lie, but the beast never lies. The bond had formed. From that moment on, Isla saw him differently. She began to dream of red eyes in the fog, of howling winds carrying names, of shadows that loved her. She found herself drawn to the woods, to the places he walked. And he, Cale, began to linger longer in his human form, walking close enough to brush her hand but never daring, because every touch made the beast stir, every heartbeat louder. One evening, Isla found her mother's old journal, leather-bound, locked, hidden under the floorboards of the shop. Inside, pages of symbols, notes on bloodlines, and a prophecy whispered only in fear. "The moonborn shall rise of wolf and woman. Her womb shall bear the end of balance. Her breath shall awaken the old blood." Isla was not just being watched. She was being hunted, not just by Cale, but by those who feared what she might become. Mid-script, call to action, narrative integrated, she closed the journal, her breath fogging the candlelight, and whispered into the room. "If anyone hears this, if anyone has followed this far, leave a mark, a sign, a howl." The narrator leans closer, voice like a shiver up the spine. "If you've survived the hollow this far, like, comment, or share this tale. Do it before the moon rises again. Because the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to come back." The days grew colder, the fog thicker. Even the crows stopped calling. Something was stirring in Ashpine Hollow. Not just the beast, but the believers. It began with the masks. Silver-faced figures glimpsed at the edges of Isla's vision. Reflections where none should be. Footsteps that matched hers through the forest but never showed their source. One morning she found her front door marked, a crude symbol etched in salt and ash, a crescent moon split by a dagger. Cale saw it. His face darkened, his jaw clenched. "They know," he said simply. "The Silver Circle. They believe you're her." The legend passed down by moonlight said this: "When the bloodline of beast and mortal unites, a moon-born child shall rise, one who walks between instinct and will. And where she walks, balance dies." "They think you're the beginning of the end," Kyle murmured. "Or worse, the end of the beginning." Isla didn't speak, but she didn't flinch either. Instead, she reached out. Her hand brushed his face, flesh warming over bones that once broke under the full moon. And the moment she touched him, he shuddered because the beast inside him wanted her not to kill, to claim, to protect, to belong. But with that desire came the curse, and Cale knew the more he loved her, the closer she came to ruin. They fled into the woods that night, to an old chapel, now nothing but ruin and moss, where Cale had once prayed for death and received the curse instead. There, Isla found the mural, a forgotten carving in the stone beneath the altar. A woman, arms raised to the blood moon, her belly full, her eyes empty. "The prophecy says the moonborn dies in childbirth," Isla whispered, "that her death seals the bond, that the cult believes if I live, the curse spreads." Kyle turned away. "You should leave Ashpine, burn the bookshop, run. But you'll still follow me," she said. Silence. He didn't deny it. That night they kissed beneath the trees. It wasn't soft, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, broken, beautiful, a moment stolen from fate's throat. But Cale pulled away before the transformation began, just as the moon crested the canopy. "If I stay, I'll destroy you. And if you go," she said, "you already have." They didn't see the cult gather behind them, didn't see the silver blades, the ropes, the traps, but the forest did, and the hollow, whispered warning. The narrator's tone now carries the weight of a storm on the horizon. Love in Ashpine is never pure. It's carved, scarred, paid in blood. And as the blood moon rises, the truth sharpens its fangs. They're not just fighting for each other. They're fighting for the right to feel human again. The storm came first, rolling thunder, crimson lightning tearing across the sky like celestial claws. Rain fell in sheets, angry, endless, as if the hollow itself were weeping. Then the chanting began, low, rhythmic. Dozens of voices beneath white bone masks gathered in a circle outside Isla's cabin. They stood in the mud surrounding her home with torches in one hand and silver in the other. And in the center, chained to a stake driven deep into the earth, Isla, soaked, bleeding, eyes wide but unbroken. She had refused to run because she knew he would come. She whispered his name beneath the storm. "Cale," the trees answered, first with wind, then with howl. He erupted from the woods like a nightmare made flesh. Not man, not wolf, but something in between. His body shimmered with sinew and shadow, claws slicing air, breath smoking with rage. No longer hiding, no longer resisting. This was Cale unleashed. The Silver Circle charged, but they weren't ready. He tore through them, limbs flying, masks shattering, blood mingling with rain. Screams drowned in thunder as he fought not just for survival, but for love. Yet for every cultist he broke, another came, and from the center stepped their leader, hood pulled back, eyes alight with fanatic fire. "She is the Moonborn," he spat, "and she must die to stop what's coming." Cale lunged. The leader whispered a word in a dead tongue, the binding curse, and Cale dropped to one knee, seizing in agony. Silver etched into his veins, the ancient magic flaring. The rain fell harder. Isla screamed his name, but he couldn't move. The beast roared inside him, but the curse tightened its grip. The blade was raised. Isla, chained, faced her death with tears, but no fear. Then something changed. Cale turned, not with rage, but with clarity. He looked at her, not as a beast, not as a protector, not as prey, but as his reason. And with a final cry, he shattered the curse from within. His flesh tore, his bones cracked. He became monstrous, fully beast, but fully free. He launched himself at the cult leader, biting down with all the fury of a century's worth of pain and love denied. The body hit the ground, twitching once, then still. The rest fled, scattering into the storm like roaches. Silence. Kale collapsed, torn, bleeding, fading. Isla, now free, crawled to him, cradling his head as his fur gave way to skin again. "You saved me," she whispered. "No," he rasped. "You saved me." Then the twist of fate. A soft glow rose from the soil. Not silver, not blood red, but gold. The air shifted. The hollow itself seemed to breathe. The moon dimmed, less a predator now, more a witness, and with her tears falling onto his wounds, the curse broke, not with death, but with love. The prophecy was never real. It was a lie born of fear, a myth created by men afraid of what love between monster and mortal could become. And now that lie was buried beneath the blood and rain. The narrator speaks now with a ghost of a smile, both mournful and hopeful. He didn't die that night. Neither of them did, because the hollow, ancient and cruel as it may be, is still capable of mercy when it's earned. Ashpine Hollow never changed. The fog still curled through the trees. The wind still whispered names through broken branches, and the locals still lit their porch lights, even when no one was expected. But the hunts had stopped. No more claw marks in the snow. No more howls echoing through the cliffs. Only stories now, and silence. In the old bookshop at the center of town, the windows glow warm again. Inside, Isla Winters turns a page. A kettle sings. 2 cups sit on the counter, steam rising from both. She lives alone. But some say they see her speaking to someone when no one's there, smiling at something just beyond the lantern light. Children tell tales of a wolf man who guards the woods, one who doesn't kill but watches. One who leaves gifts, feathers, bones, and poems burned into bark. They say he only comes out for one reason: her. And if you ever find yourself walking through Ashpine and you feel something behind you in the fog, something tall, silent, and no longer afraid, don't run, just whisper Kale and keep your heart steady. Because not all monsters want to hurt you. Some only want to remember how it felt to be human. Final pause, the narrator's voice now like a shadow closing the door. Thank you for surviving the horrors of Moonstalked. But remember, what you've witnessed tonight is just the beginning. The darkness in Ashpine doesn't vanish, it only waits. And if you want more of what sleeps beneath the moon, a subtle beat, then an eerie whisper, click our Ultimate Werewolf Horror playlist in the description below. More cursed love, more blood in the fog, more things that howl when the world forgets them, and trust me, Fear Seeker, you don't want to be left in the dark. Like, comment, share, subscribe, welcome to the darkness.